Enjoy the time lapse. Meet my OC, Hope. I created this piece back in November of 2021. And I originally came up with Hope's design during September 2021. It took me a while to decide what I wanted to do with this piece here. My original idea was to have her look as though she was drifting away. But whilst I was going over the sketch lines to make sure I was happy with the piece, I realized that I really liked how it was looking, just simple and calm. And just like usual, I'll be spending way too much time on the sketching. It was also really important to me that I got the hands right for this piece, as they were to be the main focus of her pose. You'll also notice that when I sketch, I hide my other layers and focus on the specific part I'm working on. Once I'm happy with how the individual layers look, I check how they look together and hope it's not dreadful. And then, being indecisive, I decided to double check whether I wanted to have her fading away or not. I did like how it looked, but I honestly might have just been too lazy to do it. So with the sketching done, I started working on blocking in all the shapes. The hands were definitely the worst part to block in because they looked so weird to me without shading. To make sure I was getting the hands right, I was following a reference photo that I had taken of myself. Even with the reference, it was still difficult, but I was slowly getting there. And with the difficult part done, everything else left to block in was relatively simple. Since I drew this piece without clothing, I started some of the shading to help me tell apart her hands from the rest of her body. And with that shading being good enough, I could block in the final part. The hair was quite simple to do since she is one of my few short-haired characters. Just the face left to add and we can start shading. Except I of course found more little adjustments I wanted to make to her hair first. And with the adjustments complete, it was time to make a little color selection from the previous piece. And then I went right back to adjusting her hair and her horns, because one touch-up was never going to be enough. Clearly, I was being indecisive again and just gave up on fixing the hair and started working on adding in her band-aids instead. And after that little distraction, I went back and finally fixed the hair. I have no idea why I keep giving my OCs fringes, because I hate trying to make them look natural every single time. And with her hair looking as good as it's gonna get, I can start shading the piece. Again, I started with shading in the pieces where it was difficult to tell her body apart from itself. I kept double checking with the original piece that I made to make sure I was keeping her colors close to what I had picked before. And with yet another color selection made, I began to shade the skin. When I'm shading, I like to start with the darker colors first to make sure I'm giving them enough space. I'm not gonna lie, when I'm shading, I just go with what I think looks nice instead of trying to follow a specific light source. I just hope things will look somewhat correct and I call it a day from there. So far, I was really happy with how the shading was turning out. Even though this is sped up, this shading is going to take me forever, so you better be comfy. Since the next couple of minutes is just going to be more shading, I'm going to be quiet for a little bit. Finally, it's starting to get a little bit more exciting because it's time for lighting. Adding all the little details to the patterns of the shadows with a touch of light is always so fun. This was by far my favorite part when I was working on this. Since I wasn't adding clothing to this piece, I really wanted to make sure all the shadows and lighting made up for the lack of details that would have been on the clothing. I'm going to move the rest of the subtitles over here so they aren't in the way. It was so relaxing adding in all of these little details. I hope that it's just as relaxing to watch. I honestly might have went a little bit over the top with the amount of detailing I added. I felt like it was too cluttered once I started to add more lighting, but I'll fix that later on. Though with the main body almost done, I can start working on her face soon. Just a few extra touch-ups and we're almost there. Finally, we're going to get started on the face. I didn't want to overload the face with too many details, so I'm mainly adding blush here. And once I'm happy with the face details, I can start working on the eyes. I wanted to give her a cute and thoughtful yet distant gaze. Let me know if you think I managed that. I kind of got a little bit distracted here and started editing the details I had added earlier to her chest, since I finally realized they were a little over the top. And of course, I started to notice other areas that I wanted to add some little touch-ups to, and did that first before I went back to working on her eyes. I'm sure that you can tell that I get distracted easily, but now it's time to finish the eyes. I've got to say, making a fully pink character was definitely challenging because I found that it was quite hard to make her stand out when she's so similar to herself. And with all the other pink details done, it was time to start working on her slightly pink-white hair. The hair might have been the hardest part to work on because I knew that if I wanted to add highlights to her hair, then I couldn't have her base hair being white, it had to be slightly pink. I spent a really long time on her hair because it just took forever to get right. It got to a point where I realized I couldn't really keep adding more, so it was time to try at a background. I really wanted to add a light background, which of course I would come to realize that was also going to be difficult. To make sure that she could still stand out against a light background, I added some details behind her that should help. And then I made sure to give her a couple outlines to further separate her from the background. And with all the lines added in, and a few extra details of course, I felt that she was now complete. Here's the final piece. I hope that you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.